one of the biggest defining moments was when I joined the hotel and my husband was like ready to be done. Like he was just like, I want to sell the hotel. And that's no secret. He was just ready to be done. And we held it for a few more years. And I looked at him and I said, well, I have a game plan. We're not selling it for X. We're going to sell it for Y. And give me 12 months. I'm going to increase your revenue $1 million.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Moments That Matter podcast, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the pivotal moments that have shaped the journeys of exceptional and influential leaders. I'm your host, Jason Crepero, and in each episode, we explore an industry leader and their unique story.
A little bit about me. I'm a former boutique hotel owner. We had an all-inclusive lodge in the mountains of North Carolina near Asheville. And when I sold that, I started into advisory consulting roles with inns and boutique hotels in the independent space, as we've talked about, and kind of act as like a fractional COO, fractional CMO for independent family-owned properties. So that's like a little bit in a nutshell. I'm sure we're going to dive into like my past and like the whole history, because there's a lot before the boutique hotel and probably a lot to come still. So
well, let's start there. So, did you go to college? Typical route? Was hospitality in your blood? Where'd you get started?
So, funny story about me is I never received my 4-year degree because I went to the College of Cancer. So I had cancer 3 times in my 20s, and that was probably the most defining moment in my life. I loved to travel. So my dad used to travel for work, and he used to play he always flew Delta. I was raised in Salt Lake City, so that was the hub. So we always flew Delta, and he would fly to Detroit every week for work. And so he would bank up miles, and then he would offer to give up his seat and get bumped and take the next flight. So he built up all these tickets. So when I turned 10, we all went to Disney World, and my dad had all these bank tickets. So he took us and a whole nother family. And that's when the cloud surfer was born. So I call flying cloud surfing. And that is what ignited my passion for travel and hospitality, really. Was just getting on my first flight, not necessarily a Disney World thing, but putting my toes in the sand on a beach. And that was like this huge moment of life. And so when I was in high school, I actually did a 2-year degree through a college while I was in high school, and it was in travel and tourism. And so that led me to being a travel agent, and then it just perpetuated from there to where I am today.
Wow, incredible! So when you had cancer, when you were in high school?
So I had cancer. I was first diagnosed. So I did not have cancer in high school, but I had issues, like some problems going on, and they found cancer. So it was 22, 25, and 26. I may have that wrong too. It might be 21, 23, and 24, but anyway.
I mean, how incredible. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not one of those things that like I'll broadcast once in a while, like National Cancer Survivors Day and like all of that stuff. And I was very fortunate, I was very in touch and in tune with my body. And so I was always the one like step ahead of the doctors, like something's wrong. And, after like exploratory surgery, I was having surgery every 6 months for a while. It was all female issue related. And so it was just these moments of like, I'm not feeling well, what's going on? And then, basically having a hysterectomy at the age of, I think I was 21. So having a hysterectomy at the age of 21, just like that changes your life. Like, you're never going to have kids, like there's all these things that when you're 21, you're kind of on top of the world and it doesn't matter. When you're 30, you're like, that was such a weird pivotal moment at 21 to make these like harsh decisions. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that you had to go through that. I mean, your strength though, coming out of that and for the rest of your life, you must have been able to come to the conclusion that you can handle anything.
Yeah. I think, what it really kind of boils down to is like, it's not that you can handle anything, is that you're grateful for everything. You're grateful for the morning, you're grateful for like having a healthy body. You're just grateful for so much more. And in turn, like I think that that also challenged me to express the gratitude, but to give more than is expected, especially with people that I work with or like guests at our hotel. And because those are truly the defining moments when we feel special. And so I
Mhm.
think that sort of led me into that whole hospitality realm.
Yeah. So then you transition as a travel agent and now you're like you love to travel, but you're helping other people have their live their best life. How long did you do that for?
So I started as an intern at 16 as a travel agent. And that was awesome. Like first job, like it wasn't my first job. I mean, I worked at fast food and did all that when I was 14, when we used to all work when we were really young.
Yep, get that worker's permit.
But we didn't, and we, and we
Turn
didn't
14.
have like we didn't have cell phones. So like, we were forced to like ride our bikes and go talk to our friends and
Yep. I had that. I had a little lawn care business before I was 14, but the
yeah,
moment I was 14, I was just like, you can go get a permit. You can work some nights, some weekends.
yeah. I
It hits a
mean,
lot of it.
yeah, it's so I transitioned out of fast food and order taking and then took an internship as a travel agent and I remained a travel agent until I was 22-ish. I did
Wow.
all of the travel for the Olympic torch relay for all the VIPs that came to like visit the torch and run with the torch along the way.
Oh, in
Um,
Salt Lake
in Salt Lake,
for the
yeah.
Olympics.
So for the Olympics. So that was a huge experience, right? It's all I think when we talk about like moments and things that define you, like that role led me to a whole nother role. And just like has everything like shaped into different things. So I left, after that role at the Olympics, I mean, tons of people from around the world. And I ended up taking a job with a private island development in the Bahamas as a sales and marketing director. So, a girl from Salt Lake City had cancer 3 times, and I was like, you know what? This is my moment. I either take it
Yeah.
or I'm just gonna like basically be stuck. And so I used to write a lot. I did a lot of travel writing, and at one point I think I said yoga saved my life. And my husband and I just had this conversation literally 2 nights ago. And he says, honey, you haven't been doing yoga as much. Like you're traveling so much right now. Like you've got to find time for you. Like he called me this morning and he was like, okay, you need to take a minute today, like just for yourself. And I said, I know I will. And he was like, because you tell me yoga. And I was like, but honey, I really think that yoga was a piece. And I think that travel saved my life and the inspiration and the education and like the community of it, that led me to something so different. So yeah.
Jeez, that is incredible.
I told
So
you
how
there was
long?
a lot of stories, right?
I know, I know. I mean, even just, the flawless execution of the Olympics, which is incredible at that age, the amount of pressure, and stress that you're probably coordinating and everybody's got expectations and it's falling on you. That's incredible. So you go down in the island and that's a change of scenery, change of pace. What types of skills did you then acquire while you were there that you didn't have previously that you could put in your toolkit?
Yeah, so I think that the tools that I got from the island, right? It that actually helped me slow down. So it was like, hey, life doesn't have to be so fast paced, but also like, you know what? This is a whole nother level, right? Like it used to be this little island used to be a millionaire's playground. They now call it a billionaire's playground. And it's not about the money, but it's about learning from other people and like dreaming much bigger, I guess. Um, and so the tools in the toolkit were like, it's okay that I didn't have a 4-year education, right? But like it there's so much that I could learn from all the people that are around me because I was placed with, brilliant people.
Oh, your experience too. Must have been, you know, that's what they always say, like education or experience, equivalent experience.
Right.
I did 2 years at a junior college, in my hometown of upstate New York, and then I moved down to Myrtle Beach, and within 8 months was, general assistant GM and then GM of my own store. Then I built a store, and so by 23, I've got like a couple years of ownership experience in Sonic drive-ins and like no 4-year degree, but no 4-year degree on earth could have prepared me
Right.
for the experiences that I had at Sonic Drive-In, like owning and operating. Later on, I ended up going back and getting it, but there is some shade that's thrown if you don't, have that 4-year degree too. You feel like once I
Oh,
finally did that, it's like, okay, now I've at least got that stamp, but nothing changed. I was the same person with the same experiences and education,
yeah.
from real life experiences the whole time.
So it's so funny, right? Like I always toyed with like, do I go back? Like my whole dream as a kid was like, I'm going to be an attorney. Well, I even applied to take this course and work with a travel attorney in San Francisco when I was super young and right before all the cancer stuff. And so, I kind of like bailed from that. And now I've gone back and I was like, nothing can change my experience and the people that I've met and like the wealth of knowledge that I have been given and continue to work at, right? Like, but I do agree, like some people do throw shade and they're like, well, I don't know if you're qualified. I'm like,
It's
well, I have some history. We could, talk about like things we've done, right? But I think
and it's really not about having that degree. So you have the acumen and the intellect to be the type of person that is in high school and you're taking college credits. That's pretty rare. And so there's probably a bunch of other things that you pick up on really quickly, can process decision making. Yeah, I've had that before. I even had someone I worked for short term temporarily. They came and oversaw me in a previous role. And it was that moment where you have a review, and I was crushing it, by all accounts. And so advocated for a raise, and they were like, hey, just threw it back to me. You have a 2-year degree. If I told the people, back at headquarters what you're making, you don't even have a 4-year degree, they'd quit. They'd walk out the doors. And it's like, obviously they're not placing a value on your ability, your execution, the things that you've done previously. It's just about that degree. And there's a whole camp of those types of people that place value on your ability to sit in a chair and take orders.
right.
Kind of crazy. Now, I mean, luckily I then did go back. I got a master's degree from the number one school in the world for entrepreneurship. But every day I went to school, every single day that I went to school, they didn't know it was a competition. I was like, I'm showing up. I'm trying my hardest. I have no obstacles. I am focusing. And it's one of those things that when you finally do accomplish it, I mean, I talk about that I mean, I don't go for job interviews anymore or anything like that, but it rarely comes up. It's one of those things that like once you achieve it, you're kind of like, yeah, I have it, but like it doesn't do
Yeah.
anything.
Right. Yeah, it
Good
doesn't come up,
experience.
but it's awesome that you have it. And I think we're both entrepreneurial. So, after I left the island, I've worked for myself. I've started my own companies. And so that's just been my path because I was like, nobody that, again, like the 4-year degree was a, well, you're not qualified. And so it was more of me going, I'm gonna show you.
Yes. Yes. And so when we did the webinar and just before you and I connected a day before, and I was like, learning about your experiences. So now you help independent boutique, bed and breakfast or hotels. What's the key threshold that you had mentioned under
So
150?
I stay under 150 keys, just because I like smaller, more intimate properties. It's where I like to stay, and I feel like it's where I can help people thrive.
Mhm.
Because I do feel like a smaller key is it's just a better it's like better experience, I guess.
Oh, and you're making a real difference in their lives. These are like sole proprietors, individuals that have everything on the line. They're the ultimate entrepreneurs, like doing it all themselves, wearing a lot of hats. But you come from having owned your own
Mhm.
hotel. You call it was it a resort, you would say?
We would call it an all-inclusive resort.
Okay.
Resort's a very loose term these days. Like we didn't have a pool, which I think qualifies as a resort. We had a lake,
Oh,
a mile and a half down, like from where we were. So, it was an all-inclusive stay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so having that experience of owning it and wearing all the hats and doing all the work yourselves, and then now you're helping people find similar success. What kind of learnings did you take away from that experience? And then you exited that successfully, which is incredible. So you sold that. What types of experiences did you then have in your toolkit to say, I can go and help other people do this too?
Yeah, so I joined my husband. He had the hotel previously, and for a long time we were not going to work together. And then we joined, and so for me, like I just dove into the business. Like I said, I'm going to learn everyone's job responsibilities. I'm gonna learn what our housekeeping team does, and then we're going to inspire everybody and figure out how we make processes better. So we went through I went through every single position within the operation to truly understand it and to also provide like to give them like, hey, I'll work with you. I'm not afraid of the work. And so with that, you gain so much knowledge, so many experiences. You're able to look at all the operations. You're able to look at marketing. I mean, my background is truly in marketing, right? In the hospitality. And so like travel agent to marketing to writing about hotels. And so like this, I have this like full circle experience of operations and marketing. And so you look at everything at a hotel very differently. So when you're walking into, I'm sitting in a boutique hotel right now having this conversation, be here working with them for 3 days. Um, when you walk into the hotel, you're able to pinpoint like, okay, operationally, this isn't working. This isn't being plated right on this. The menu doesn't read right. You're able to walk through all of the things. And so all of those tools really, really helped. And I think for me, like one of the biggest defining moments was when I joined the hotel and my husband was like ready to be done. Like he was just like, I want to sell the hotel. And that's no secret. He was just ready to be done. And we held it for a few more years. And I looked at him and I said, well, I have a game plan. We're not selling it for X. We're going to sell it for Y. And give me 12 months. I'm going to increase your revenue $1 million. And that doesn't sound like, for a 450 key hotel, they're like $1 million, whatever. For a small 23 room hotel, that's a huge thing. And he looked at me and laughed and he was
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, uh-huh. Yep. And we hit the end of 12 months and he said, you went over your goal. He said, I didn't
Wow.
believe you could do it. And so it's like just figuring out where like little and literally little tiny things in communication, being able to offer something that nobody ever thought about. It wasn't like just increasing rates. It was such a much larger strategy than that.
Yeah, like providing the actual value, delighting customers, making sure they talk about it. What a dig in. That could be its own podcast, like what you did to make all those changes. Um, so another doubter. So he's like, I don't think you could do it. And you're like, watch me. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm grateful for that. Like I was so grateful that he was like, no. And I'm like, yes.
I
And
think we all
it
need
was hard
haters and
work.
doubters.
We do like, I mean, but we have to believe in ourselves. And I think like my biggest thing was like, you always have to believe in yourself and you might have a crazy idea and it may not work, but if you don't follow something through and try, you'll never know, you know? Um, so it worked out in my favor. It was scary. I mean, I worked hard though. I mean, it's not, you don't do that and not get like your hands dirty and like
Right.
be totally gritty in the work.
Absolutely. So now you've got decades of experience, operational excellence, plus the marketing bag to go with it. And you travel around to incredible places, being able to help them. I kind of feel like you're like the Gordon Ramsay of, of hotels,
Well,
going around.
secretly, I want my own show. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
I should reach out to some casting agents in Los Angeles, say, because it's interesting, live like out in remote Montana, right? And then you've got to fly in weekly to be on site for days on end and help these people. And you've got the experience and the know-how to be able to do it. What's that like? Do you ever just take a moment, to yourself or in silence and go like, this is a pretty cool job?
I love my job. Like my husband is always like, honey, you travel like so much. And I said, I know. But he's like, that feeds your soul. Like travel feeds your soul. And it truly does. I've always designed my career to be able to experience travel in some way.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's just been part of it. So I absolutely love what I do. Like I love helping people, and I love seeing guests of places or hearing like reviews or just like knowing that you made a difference or somebody like, increased their business 50%. Like just all of those things are just they just feed my soul.
Yeah, it's interesting to be on site. One of the coolest things is when people ask us to take content, they'll be like, "Hey, we don't have much. Can you come over?" And if it's a client where if we do right by one or two hotels, we might get 20 or 50 or 100. And so from time to time, I'll go over and I'll say, "Yeah, I'll grab my iPhone or Osmo Pocket 3." And it's so cool to be able to talk to the staff and the guests and just ask them questions because Hover is about storytelling and what narrative do you want to portray online to invite people to join you? And it's got to be authentic, it's got to be real. But one of the things I ask the front desk people are like, why do people stay here when they come? What experience are they after? Is it just like I need to lay my head down because I'm going to this concert tomorrow across the street? Or is there something about your hotel or the surrounding area? And one group I talked to at the hotel on Rivington, which is a Highgate property in Manhattan, I talked to them and I asked them, why do people stay here? And the first the front desk agent was like, oh, we have so many people that love our Japanese soaking tubs. And I'm like, Japanese soaking tubs. I've scoured the website, right? I was on the website everywhere looking for like what this place would be like so that I could provide a good video experience and highlight the things, but I didn't see anything about these soaking tubs. I was like, really? That's why? Like, what? Tell me about the soaking tubs. Like every room or a certain room class has these tubs and they're deep and we've got, the jets and all this stuff. And so what they came to tell me were individual stories of a nurse who works two doubles in the city and then immediately checks in with them and does like a Japanese soaking tub all night and relax and pampers herself and people that in fact, instead of coming from Europe to the hotel in Rivington, it's a lot of people from the area who want a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night out in this hotspot neighborhood. So they'll come down and they're looking to enjoy the great food and the ambiance and be in this neighborhood. And it's like, holy cow, like, that's why they're coming. And
Wow.
these are things that I didn't get initially by looking at it. And we just hear this time and time again when you ask, why do people stay here? Why do they choose you over this W hotel three blocks away? Why do they choose you over the Sheridan? And it's interesting to hear both the staff, the guests, the staff, like the front desk folks, and then a guest. Hey, what brings you in here? Like, what was a couple of the deciding factors here? And they tell you the same thing. And it's like, wow, this is a story that needs to be told.
Right. It happens all the time, right? Like I love that. Like, but if it's not on your website, how do you tell people, right? And you can't be like the speakeasy of hotels and just like someone's going to find out. Like we have to be broadcasting the message. And
Yeah.
I love that you go and talk to guests and staff and you guys help uncover those stories that aren't being told.
I wish we could do it more. It's really only when people ask, like,
Right.
"Hey, what is this?" But I'll also, I try to be the most curious person, even down to when people are in the room and they call down to you. What are they asking for? Questions about the hotel, not like, can you bring us up some shaving kits or things like that, but like,
Right.
what are they asking you? What do they wonder about the neighborhood or the hotel? Like, is it gym hours? Do you have a gym? Funny, they didn't find that out ahead of time, right? Like all these different things. And I just relish in the information about what's going on in these properties. So I can only imagine you going on property and you get to spend days talking to these people and figuring out what makes them all tick.
It's so much fun. You know how it is. Like it's just so much fun. Yeah.
Well, if you weren't doing this specific job, and I know you love your job, and I actually love your job. I wish we could switch places. I'll go out to the little hotels, in the boutiques. What could you see yourself doing? What else could you be getting into?
Oh wow, that's such a good question. And even though like I should have known you were going to ask that, like I think, I love to write. So it'd probably be creating some sort of career in writing, whether I'm writing a novel. I've always said I have a novel in me. I'm not sure that I don't have it right now. I'm too busy and I travel too much. So it would probably be something around writing.
Do you currently take time out to, like, at the moment, are you focused on writing anything, poem, short form, anything?
No, but I used to write so much. And I still do like a lot of writing for clients at the end of the day. And so now I feel like,
Copy.
yeah, copy. So like copy is part of it because I'm really big about communication and how things are said. Um,
Hmm.
and so no, I'm not personally writing. I always say I'm going to. So it's probably, probably like one of
Tomorrow.
those things like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to do that tomorrow. But eventually, like I'll do, and I still write several articles in the industry. So when I do that and get published, and I always get excited and happy. So it's one of those things I should still do a little bit.
Yeah. One of the dynamics I'm really curious about with you and your clients, and feel free to say like you don't want to talk about that, is you're bringing in real life experience and know-how, and you, after probably a period of time, it comes the moment where you need to make some recommendations and tell them, hey, I think this, is really the direction. But they're probably so steeped in either tradition or this is how we've done it, or like, hey, this is my livelihood. And if we make a decision and it doesn't pan out, like the whole farm, I'd have to give up. What, metaphorically speaking, not like a farm.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself in those conversations where there's sort of the moment of truth where you're like, all right, like I really think this is going to push your business forward, but you might be thinking it's going to take the business down. And how do you work through those types of conversations?
So these conversations happen right all the time because business is changing, and ultimately at the end of the day, you're right. This is their livelihood. And I'll have certain places where, I'm going to use three examples. We had a conversation with a client this year about, the direction, and they really wanted to be guest focused and hospitality focused, and where they're being managed was not happening that way. And so we did a deep dive, pretend stay. Like it wasn't a pretend stay. Like I was basically like a secret shopper, went and stayed at all of their properties, experienced all their restaurants, and then came back and said, all right, here, this is what's lacking. This is what's lacking. Ultimately, it's communication, and ultimately it comes from the top. And if management is not on board with this guest focus, like there are big changes that you have to make. And those are in process right now. Because they knew it, but they were afraid to do it because it's somebody in the hospitality space. I mean, and this happens all the time, right? I own a hotel, I own some restaurants, I'm in the hospitality space, I don't have any experience, so I don't know. So I need to listen to somebody from Marriott tell me what to do. Right. And I'm just using that as like a chain, right? Because they act very different than an independent, and they're not nimble. And so the whole thing in the indie space that I'm in is that everyone has to be nimble. They have to be able to make decisions and move when they want to move. And when it's so corporate structured, it's much harder, and it's much harder to grow the business in a guest experience kind of way. Um, and so they are hard conversations, but also like it's also lifting people up and saying you can do this. It's okay that you don't have 20 years of experience at a hotel. You know exactly what you need to do, and you have your ducks in a row. Like, it's okay. We'll be here to lean on, and we have other people we can refer you to if you want help in this restaurant space or you want help in this space. So, keep part of my tools are like all the contacts I've made and what works for them.
Yeah, I have like behind behind this screen, I have so many questions I could ask, but I just have so many follow-up questions that I don't know. So when you mention like being nimble, turning on a dime, making decisions, on the fly or changing course, absolutely. Are there any are there any characteristics or qualities of some of the most successful hoteliers that you see that you're just like, oh my gosh, these people, they have these character. If you had these characteristics or these qualities, these intangibles, you're probably going to be successful in this industry.
So that that's a great question. Also a tough question. So, the qualities that I see for success are people um, that are humble, that have beautiful spaces, um, that they may not know how to exactly like communicate what they are, um, and be able to like, they I would say I'm thinking of like three different clients at once because I'm trying to compare like what it is about it, but it has this, and I think we all have heard the term quiet luxury. So
Mhm.
quiet luxury is like it's all understated. It's not like like I don't have like my shirt doesn't say a label on it, but you walk in and you just have this whole experience that's fueled by hospitality. Um, but it's understated and humble. And so to me, that is the most success. And the people that have the stories to tell, um, have in the indie space, when you have a story to tell and you're true to that story day in and day out, you will be successful.
Yeah, I'm thinking of some right now as well, trying to match up against that. You know, it's it's so interesting because these a lot of times do you find that your clients they're actually working in the business? They're not just absentee, kind of I own this.
They are working in the business. There are, I think I think there, that can be interesting because somebody could be working in the business but maybe not on site. But they are 100% aware and involved in what's happening because I think that puts an extra level of care
Hmm.
um in what the guest experience is.
Oh, I can totally imagine that. Do many of them have other full-time jobs and this is kind of an extra thing, or is this the main thing?
So I have clients of all spectrums. Some this is they're in this is all they do. Some have whole other worlds, and this is just a piece of their puzzle. And so and that's a beautiful thing. There's not one that's better than the other. As long as they're all involved in the actual that maybe not the day to day, but the overall operation and their vision stays in place. That's where it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a sweet spot of like when they reach out to you? So obviously they've identified I have a problem or I have an opportunity. I'm worried about this. I'm kind of fearful that this might happen, and so I've got to kind of reach out to you. Is there a typical point people begin reaching out to you?
So I would say the typical point is when it's a um, something has happened. I don't know what's happened, right? Because something has happened. Either I've just taken on this role, we've started this hospitality company, and I need somebody to coach and guide me, then that
Mhm.
happens. Or let's say that the numbers in the last 6 months have just dropped and there's not sure what's going on. There's operational challenges. There's, cost costs are increasing and they're like, what do I do? Or I've had this recently, like I haven't had a reservation in 30 days. What am I doing wrong?
Oh, wow.
And so and that's all over the board, right? So then
So
you're
it's
looking
never
at
like green pastures. We're having the best year ever. We just want to add some fuel. Something's happened. Okay.
sometimes it's green pastures and it's like, I just want to have this beautiful presence and I need this and it's easy, right? But it's really never just easy because there's always some dynamic that whether it needs to be fixed. I don't want to always say it has to be fixed because it's not that. It's supporting and elevating to go to the next level. So my sweet
Yeah.
spot is helping somebody go to their next level.
That's incredible because everybody's on the spectrum and everybody has the ability to just, what's your next? How do you level up? Normally we do this at the end of the program, but we probably got, 10 or 15 minutes just while we're talking about that. So I was on your LinkedIn and I've read about, but don't know about the Murray method and the 24/7 concierge app and the inner circle. So for those that may be listening who may be struggling or having a hard time looking for their next, how can people get a hold of you? And then what are some of those elements of the Murray method and the concierge app?
Yeah, so the Murray method, I just sort of did a play on the last name, right? Um, that's so funny. I haven't even thought about this for a minute.
I,
Magnificent,
I did figure that.
reputable, right? So like I'm saying yes because I think that we all have to say yes. So that's how it ends. So when I first started, when we sold the hotel, I said I'm gonna build an app and I'm gonna coach people through an app on various things, digital marketing, videos, practices, operational stuff. And I did I did a lot of videos with a lot of people. I actually sold the app to a private company. So it's all theirs and it's no longer the Murray method, or so I probably should take that off my LinkedIn. So thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Just kidding.
I was actually
I
looking. I was
get
like,
I
where is
get
this app?
I get too busy. I've
Mm.
actually, this is like second time in a week somebody's asked about it. So I get too busy doing everything else. This is my downfall that I don't spend enough time on my stuff. So, but my inner circle is like a VIP coaching where we spend every week we spend time just talking for 30 minutes about anything within your business that you need help with. And then I do like on-site visits and do this like CMO, COO type of thing. So how they contact me is you can contact me through LinkedIn or my website or email, which is typically the best, just Mandy@mandymurray.com. And yeah,
Fantastic. And that's Mandymurry. No E, right?
that's correct. No A. So yeah, Mandymurry.
Yes, yes, no way. Awesome. So just two more pieces here for us. If you could travel back to a moment in your career, so you're there, and offer any advice to your younger self, where would it be? When would it be? And what would you say?
So when I lived on an island, life changing. I think that I would go back and say to myself, like, continue saying yes and don't try to please everybody. Because here, like at that space in my life, I had just come out of cancer. I had just moved from Salt Lake City to the Bahamas, right? I mean, it's the first time I ever tasted champagne, like and it was Dom Perignon, so we all know where that has led me, right? I do not
Wow.
Prosecco.
Where do you
Just
go
kidding.
from there?
So I would
Awesome.
say in that moment, like in my career, like don't hold back. It's okay. Like it's okay not to get everything I want, right? But to continue chasing my dreams and I always did chase my dreams. So it doesn't, but I would probably set myself up in a different way and say, maybe moving back to Salt Lake was not the move. after the island, right? Maybe it
Mm,
was because I don't really regret any of the decisions that I've made. But I think that it's always believe in yourself and work hard and don't be afraid to ask for help.
incredible. Well, I was going to ask for some advice to younger people in general, but it sounds like that would be it. We were trying to I do some stuff with younger folks who are getting into entrepreneurship. It sounds like that might be the same advice to a younger person trying to get started, though.
Yeah, I think so. I had an opportunity this last couple months to co-teach at an NYU class, and I've had a couple people reach out to me from the class, and they're first year hospitality students, and like what an honor to be able to like influence them. And they've literally said, "Well, can you help me get into writing?" And so I'm using connections and trying to do that, but ask for help. Like, don't be afraid, because this young woman who's 19 reaching out saying, I just need to know something about this. That took a lot of guts, right? To say, can you help me? I think, people are willing to help. We all, in hospitality, especially, I think we have like these servant hearts. And so, absolutely just ask, because the worst that's going to happen is someone's going to say no. But guess what? There will be someone that says yes. So keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you heard it here, folks. Mandy Murry, hospitality coach, hospitality concierge, coaching independent hotels for success in revenues, operation, and marketing. Really appreciate you, Mandy, joining us today. Thanks
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for listening in, audience. Don't forget as well to subscribe or like if you want to get all of the updates and new episodes. Always appreciate that. Thanks so much and have a great day.